Well, during my ER days, I loved figuring out what was wrong with somebody and then letting somebody else take care of the rest.
Wow.
So,
That's
and
pretty cool.
you know, definitely.
I think that's what leaders do anyway. They assess.
My name is Rob Gluckman. I'm an attorney by trade, and she is, Dr. Lippman's my better half.
They're married.
She kept her maid's
Good
name, I swear, because she was in denial of being married to me, but it was more because her medical license, it was too difficult to change over the names. But I started off as a prosecutor here in Martin County. Then I wound up doing workers' compensation defense, representing insurance companies and employers against injured workers. Michelle's medical practices started becoming successful, so I left the practice of law to aid this beautiful woman in continuing her goal to help people. And I saw how she was doing it. I said, but I wanted to get her more successful. Because, you know, her expertise is people. I have an undergraduate degree in business, so I wanted to tie those two things together to help her more successful and help more people.
Yes, absolutely. All right, and Dr. Lee, tell us who you are.
I'm Lou Velasquez. I am a psychiatrist and I'm board in child and adolescent and adult. I'm originally from New York City. I attended medical school at the University of Michigan, where I also got a master's in epidemiology and did my postgraduate training in New York City at Albert Einstein in the Bronx and Columbia University. And after training, I moved up to Maine, which is quite different than New York. Very sparse, very quiet, very beautiful.
Yes.
And rural medicine, rural psychiatry is its own thing. Everybody knows everybody, and problems are no different than the problems anywhere else. But the resources are certainly a little different. It means that 43rd economy of the 50s is very poor. After living in Maine for a few years, I moved to Massachusetts for the first time. I worked in Boston at the Brigham and Women's and community mental health centers. And came 9/11, I decided I didn't want to spend an hour driving 20 miles to get to work or to get home. And we moved to New Mexico for some adventure, and we were there for 3 years. New Mexico is another very poor and dangerous state.
And your children?
I have 2 adult children, age 35 and 27 now. Yep. And from New Mexico, I moved back to Massachusetts, where I was for another 17 years.
Wow.
And
From south to north.
right.
Okay.
And I'm a newcomer to Florida. I moved here a few months ago.
You just bought a house here too.
I did.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting.
And that means you're going to stay. I love that. I'm so glad. All right. So, how did you begin Treasure Coast Urgent Care?
So I started my career here in Martin County back in 1999. I actually worked in the emergency room back when it was Martin Memorial North and South, and saw the need for urgent care in the community as we were seeing a lot of non-urgent cases in the emergency room. And so in 2006, I left the ER and we started Treasure Coast Urgent Care.
Wow. And how long have you been married?
Too long.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay, so you have just opened up this whole new realm of psychiatric care. Tell us about how that came about and what's happening with that. I'm so excited about that.
Well, that was a kind of a creature of mine, is when I was in my practice in workers' compensation, mental health issues came up all the time, but there were so few providers that would take workers' compensation. So I said, okay, there's a need there. But at that point, I was still working as an attorney. We hadn't bought the urgent care. Then hearing stories from Michelle about how many of her patients were suffering with mental health diseases that were beyond her control.
Really?
And this area is so lacking in psychiatrists.
And for children too.
For children specifically.
That's
So finding Dr. Velasquez has been a 2-year mission. And I said I wanted to find somebody. We were both, Dr. Lippman and I are dedicated to helping our veterans, our first responders. And when we met you, learning about
human trafficking, trafficked children.
that hit our hot button, and we wanted to be part of that solution.
And you have been part of it for a long time. I mean, I can't believe the mural is 10 years old. But that was when we kind of really connected, and they put the sealer on the mural. We're a big part of that. And we've been connected ever since, fighting child trafficking in this area, or any kind of trafficking, human trafficking, period. And so, and I love the fact that Dr. V works with traumatized victims, PTSD, all the things that traffic victims deal with. And we're really gonna get into that and talk about that tonight, and I think that's gonna be awesome. So tell us about your community involvement, your commitment to FFA, how you guys have been plugged in, from your perspective, what do you see?
Well, at least from my perspective, is I see you, Lynn, as being out there, every single day, putting 23 hours and 59 minutes
We have
into
a lot
this.
of other volunteers.
And it's just inspiring, the whole, religious side of things and all of the issues that need to be addressed, you're bringing to the forefront and making it stop being so taboo and not talked about. So that just kind of resonated
Yes.
with us, and
Yes.
we wanted to help, expand that. So in the medical side of things, we wanted to help, medically these, children, adults, teens that were, trafficked, help them get back on their feet
Right.
and, become productive citizens and have a life again and show that they can be loved.
Yes, and I think, I see things coming together in such a powerful way. And we just formed the Leadership Roundtable. It's really a strategic council of leaders. You three are on it. And we already had a wonderful meeting. And by the way, I want those AI notes. Those things are great. But we had a great meeting where I already got so many ideas and have already implemented things. And including, I posted on all the Stewart moms and the different places you told me to post. That worked very well because we just had the presentation at Hidden Oaks Middle School, and we had about 70 come out. We had students and parents, that's who we're trying to get to. And in fact, and guess what? We're starting a parent task force. So a branch of FFA is UACT. And that's so we can go into schools and they're not afraid of the faith work. And that's basically why we formed it. So we're gonna have UACT Parent Task Force. But we also have UACT Blue Task Force, which is retired law enforcement guys that are all ready to roll and work with us and do webinars and all kinds of things. But then we had a whole bunch of young people come to us and say, we wanna be involved. Our youth group wants to do something. We wanna start a club. So now we have UACT Youth Task Force.
Amazing.
So I think we're gonna have UACT Medical Task Force as well. But I'm just very excited. So Dr. V, from your perspective, in all of this, as we're talking about victims, we're talking about restoration, which is a big facet of what we do. How important has mental health become?
Well, mental health, I think, is very important for helping someone who's been traumatized reinvent themselves and find meaning in their lives after they've been dehumanized and made to feel insignificant, because that's part of the strategy of an exploiter, of an abuser, is to make the exploited person feel so worthless and so disempowered that they have no recourse but to fall in line to their Svengali, to whoever's taken over their mind. And a lot of it has to do with very nefarious psychological seduction. It isn't always necessarily physically violent, it's mentally violent.
Thank you for that. He's the nail on the head. Every time I talk to you, you just like spot on. I'm like, I like that about you. And I've had all this education in this realm, and you just nail it. So talk to us about the Stockholm Syndrome and why victims return back over and over again.
Well, the Stockholm Syndrome, what you call the Stockholm Syndrome, it's been around forever. I mean, it's when someone who is the victim of abuse, which is empowerment, or very severe perpetration of the body or the soul, has no recourse but to dissociate from their primary identity and assume another identity where they incorporate the abuser, right? They internalize the abuser and say it's easier to be an abuser than to be abused, so we just join him. Like one of the Star Trek episodes, that there's a Borg, where everybody's mind is seduced into a Borg. And that happens in small communities, think Dickensian London and urchins like Oliver Twist, and then they, they're thick as thieves, and they hang together, though they all know that they're thieves and pickpockets, and the people they hang out with are the not most polite society. They're all very unsavory, but at least they have a community and
Like a tribe.
a tribe, and it's better to be wanted and accepted by someone than by no one, because we're not designed to be solitary animals. We're social animals. We all need to feel that we belong.
Yes,
It's hard to survive by yourself.
that's right. That's right. We're all made for communication. We're all made for relationship.
We are.
Yes. So,
Even toxic relationships.
yes, and what I want to say too, and especially if there are people in our community that are listening right now on some of our platforms, is that we have a lot of therapists in the area, but we don't hardly have it. I've never even heard of a psychiatrist here, and I know there are some here, but I haven't heard of any really good ones. And that's not to disparage anybody that actually is, but we have a jewel here in this community now, and I want you to talk about how you're not just a drug monger, and you have other ways of treatment, especially this new thing that you just told me about that I'm so excited to hear.
As a psychiatrist, I'm pretty old school and orthodox, and some will say boring, because I think that the medications is the least of what I can do. The medications are not that complicated. It's trying to find a solution to someone's dysfunction, and that could be anxiety, that could be depression, that could be reliving the trauma and the experience, the compulsion. Many people that abuse have been abused, and many people who have sexual compulsions didn't start out that way. They were groomed to be that, and then it becomes something they can't help. So how do you help someone reinvent themselves in a manner that's functional
Yes.
within the rest of society?
Yes, well, and I think you have you have a treatment, is it called TMS?
TMS is a treatment for anxiety and depression that's been around since the late 90s, approved by the FDA in 2007. And the beauty of TMS is that it's not a medication. It's a magnet, and the magnet stimulates the part of the brain that is responsible for your moods and alleviates anxiety as well. And you don't have the physical metabolic side effects you might have from medications. So I think, and you might ask yourself, if it's been around for that long, why haven't I heard of it or more of it? And why is it around? Well, because it's not in the best interest of pharmaceuticals.
Oh, thank you.
And right now, the insurances won't even let me offer to somebody as a first choice. They first have to go on a medication.
Okay, well, the good news is you have that option. So is it kind of like an MRI?
It's like, think of a dental chair with a magnet that we position to a part of your head. We have to find a part of your head at the right angle and point it to where we can improve your mood. And the treatments take about 20 minutes, and you need to do 36 treatments, and that's 5 a week. You can go to work afterwards. It doesn't affect you like with shock therapy, where you're out for the day because you're so dizzy and confused. So it's really benign, actually. It's and what's there not to like if it's not,
Right.
a synthetic substance you're putting in your body to interact with other things.
How effective is it?
It's actually very effective. Medications, at best, work 60% of the time. That leaves 40% of people who don't respond to medications on the first trial. And the second trial, even fewer people respond. But studies have shown that people who have not succeeded with medications, that hard to treat 40%, 83% of those respond, which is really good in the world of medications. Right? It's what's called a strong effect size. Most antidepressants and medications that control moods only work 55-60% of the time. And we consider that
Side
good.
effects.
Right.
I mean, every time I see a TV commercial, it's telling me about how I'm gonna die if I use this medication.
I detest those commercials. I think they do not serve the public interest
Yeah.
at all.
Absolutely. Well, I am so glad you're here. You're doing what you're doing. We were talking about in our conversation with our Zoom meeting about how people are addicted to pornography now, and how that is such a serious addiction. And is it the frontal cortex of the brain that's involved with that dopamine release?
There's a lot of, I mean, the brain's a big place and a small place, and everything goes everywhere. So, I'll say that lots of parts of the brain are involved in making things happen. There's a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, which is also known as the pleasure center. And then you pretty much teach your pleasure center to become easily stimulated by a chosen object. And that object could be football all day on Sunday, or it could be some other hobby, or it could be pornography. It's whatever you teach your brain to focus on as a desired object that's connected then to your nucleus accumbens, the pleasure center.
So it happens so quickly that people get addicted. And my understanding of pornography, there's 5 levels, and they start them up here at the top, and they quickly descend. It takes 5 to 6 months, according to the university studies that we were exposed to, for somebody to reach the lowest level, which is sexual strangulation, murder of the worst.
That's
of the
beyond
worst.
pornography.
No, that's
something other, that's a different category.
But 8.4 million viewers at a time, and the studies show they descend very quickly, and this is what's happening worldwide now.
Lynn, what is the range of people watching pornography now? What is the highest amount of people?
I don't think they have those numbers, because I don't think anybody's done a study on
I don't
that.
collect those numbers. People don't admit it.
No, they don't
Not
admit
going
it,
to work.
that's the problem. And although I will tell you this, Focus on the Family and some other studies have shown that 50% of all church members are watching pornography. 50% of all church leaders are watching pornography. Now, if they're doing it, what is the rest of society doing?
I thought there was an increase in teenagers that were watching.
Oh, well, the largest viewing audience of pornography is under the age of 18 worldwide. Those are solid numbers. And when Pornhub pulled out of the state of Florida, and I helped Toby on that bill to HB3, which required anybody looking at pornography to submit ID and also, I believe, face recognition, and also gave their parents the right to sue those websites if they did not take adequate measures. As of January 1st, because of that bill, Pornhub pulled out of the state of Florida, and Pornhub is the largest producer of porn, and they're being sued for lying because they've said for years, there's nobody under the age of 18 on our website. Yes, liar, liar, pants on fire. I'm telling you, they have got all kinds of children on their website, and this is how it descends. Now, we just found out something else about Roblox. Now, I just listened to something about, move in closer. I just listened to something from a very well-known person who researches and goes on all these podcasts and everything, and he was showing the host of the podcast the actual pictures in Roblox of this. So apparently any child can go into Roblox now, and of course there's all the sexual vaults and secret rooms and condos that they can go into, and there's violent sexual assault going on. And this is how they're grooming children and then getting them to send pictures, and it proceeds from there. But there's another aspect we just found out. So they have this room where you can go in, and you can either choose realistic or cartoon, but any child can access this. And apparently, you can be the shooter, and you can go in and shoot Charlie Kirk and watch him bleed out and die. And this is one other aspect of Roblox now.
Encouraging
And
bloodlust.
any child can do it. And so this is why I'm so up in arms. I mean, we have to do something. We have to stop this. This is ridiculous.
The big picture, the horse is long out of the barn so far as the internet, and, people under the age of 40, 45 don't remember life before the internet. It's all they've ever known pretty much.
I'm sure I remember life.
Because, I just think we're all over 50 at this time, so I think that, we remember what life was like when you didn't have to go to a payphone, you didn't have a cell phone, or you had
Or
to
your
go
car
to-
broke down and you couldn't call for help.
Right, you had to go to the library to
Yes.
look things up.
That's right.
Card catalog and
Mhm.
such. And now the internet is just such an immense addiction for all of us, because who doesn't like instant information? But with
Right.
that comes, how do you filter it, And the way we evolved as a species, we really weren't meant to have a relationship with 10,000 people. It's not what we do. I mean, if
God
I
can do it, but not us.
This is true, but if you're a celebrity or an influencer, then that's a path you've chosen, and that takes a very different kind of psychological framework to negotiate. But most people need to keep it from like 150 to 160. Yeah, that's something called Dunbar's number. I believe he was a British evolutionary psychologist who determined that it's just not feasible to have intimacy with infinite numbers of people. You have to, and that number can shift because people have changing arrangements in life. They move, right? They get married, but then they keep shifting the members of that cohort of 150.
That's really, really interesting. You know, one of the things that the parents said to us after this Hidden Oaks presentation is, could you tell us how to talk to our children? I'm so shocked that that was their biggest question. They don't know how to talk to their
We live in
kids.
isolation in spite of the fact that we live together. People are on their devices much too much,
Yes.
or screens of any kind.
As parents use the devices as babysitters, right? They give
Especially.
the kids the iPad and it keeps them occupied and then they can go make
Right.
dinner or whatever.
Everyone at the table with their device.
Yeah.
So the officer that was at the presentation, we were talking about going to, you know, a more impoverished neighborhood and teaching this in school there. And he said, oh, no, because you need to do digital defense with your wealthier neighborhoods. Because all those kids have devices and all those kids are being babysat by their devices and the parents are not paying attention. And he said, those are the kids being preyed upon. Isn't that crazy? I said, so we know in impoverished neighborhoods, those kids are being actually trafficked. But you know about the recent arrests, right? So there are 18 warrants out now, 6 have been arrested, and every single one of them were targeting children right here in Martin County through Snapchat and various online social media, and grooming them, and then talking them into meeting them. And then they were coming here to assault them, and they just happened to be talking to a detective, thank God. But they were coming here to assault our children right here in this community.
So then as we talk about the internet, I also know AI is becoming a big problem. What have you noticed about AI
Okay.
and sexual exploitation?
Well, let me just say this, and I want you to weigh in here too, because I love for parents to hear from you how to talk to them, so I want to get back to that for sure. So the average predator used to go after a child personally 30 to 50 times a day, every day. That's what they do, is they're putting feelers out there to get 1 or 2 children to respond. With AI on the scene, now we're talking 1,000 times per minute. So what we heard at this conference is that children are being bombarded. And I have in my videos a scene of iPhones hooked up to social media in a vast library type building to where there's thousands and thousands of iPhones going to 1,000 times, each one of them. And they're all going after children. So this is, and here's the other thing we found out. There are new apps, and they are companion apps where AI will now be your companion, your advisor, and law enforcement told us that the children that they have rescued all tell them the same thing. They went there because they were lonely and they were looking for a friend.
It's just dystopian.
So,
Yes.
I wonder, do you know what age children are getting cell phones at now?
Well, I know that we just worked with a family that they caught their 8-year-old sexting with 7 and 8-year-olds at their school. They discovered that they were sexting. They don't know any better. And they're putting a bomb in their hand. I probably shouldn't say that word on social media, but they're putting this device in their hands that could take their whole soul, their life, their innocence, and everything about them. They could even lose their life.
There is a movement right now at the state level to curtail preteen and tween access
Yes.
to cell phones and social media. 19 states are negotiating types of legislation, but not strong enough. you
We
know?
did that. We did that here in Florida. That was part of HB3. But the problem was the parents whose kids were making money off of social media fought that bill because they wanted their kids to continue with the income. And so there's all this opt-out that all the parent has to do is sign and the kid can be on. So we still need a lot more. But I also want to talk about your practice here in this community and how desperately needed psychiatry now is on a more complex level than a therapist.
Well, I'm new to this community, so I can't tell you I have depth here.
We need it.
Right.
We have a great community.
But
we still
in
need it.
general, the role of a psychiatrist has evolved. I mean, it's an old-fashioned term, People are even trying to get away from the term psychiatrist. Now it's being called behavioral medicine or behavioral,
Okay.
very subtle attempt at deprofessionalization because it's been farmed out to multiple kinds of practitioners and everyone gets to be called some professional title, but it's a little bit confusing. Now, there are multiple skill sets involved in working with children. Certainly, you need to have, if there's family dysfunction, someone working with the family. If there's behavioral disruption, you need to have someone who is competent at dealing with behavioral disruption. If there's biology going on, then certainly you need to address the biology. And the biology is there, and we live at a time when we have wonderful medical interventions for biological depression and hallucinations, et cetera.
Some of it is chemical.
Right. Some kids really do have ADHD. Not all of them, but probably 5% of males and 1% of females have some degree of ADHD. But we're medicating far more than those numbers. And the same thing with childhood bipolar disorder. Humanity at large is probably 1 to 1.5% bipolar. But back in the 90s, the diagnosis of childhood bipolar went up by 3,900%.
What?
This was driven by pharmaceuticals, and we're paying professors at places, like Harvard and Washington University, to shill their medications, and it's unfortunate. A lot of kids were on meds unnecessarily. Years later, these institutions did fess up, and they were censured, and the damage has been done. Lots of kids are on meds that they don't
Lots
need.
of kids.
Now, that said, how do we help kids without meds? Well, we try to reconstruct a healthy environment for them. And we need to be honest with ourselves, it's not going to be easy. Take the issue of social media and cell phones. If at the state level, we're not willing to say that children under the age of 14, 16 should not have any access to a cell phone except a flip phone to call for their loss or something, then we're going to have that constant intrusion of unwanted noise and data into kids' minds. And if you can't compete with that, if you're not having a relationship with your kids and having conversations about everything you should have a conversation with, then someone else is going to have that conversation with your kid online.
Well, and it's interesting because one of the things is the children, if their parent takes it away from them and they go to somebody's house, there's another child that's going to play that game with them or be on social media or show them pornography or whatever. So you said something really interesting about teaching your children to be responsible with their devices. We were talking the other night.
Yeah, but kids are influenced by lots of things, and parents have so much less influence than ever before with their kids. I really believe that the only significant solution is going to be limiting access to the internet and smartphones at a larger level, at a societal level, and making it, I don't know, like if you buy a kid a beer, it's illegal, isn't it?
Right, or you can't drive till you're 16.
Right, so,
Yes.
if someone provides a child with a phone illicitly, then they should be held accountable for that.
So we have to have those laws in place, but in the meantime, parents still need to communicate with their kids, and they need to limit, and they need to have the app like Bark. Bark is a
There are
tremendous.
families who do this already, but they've chosen to do that.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so, online, there's a prominent social psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, who has written a number of books on intimacy and anxiety in development. And the recommendation he made to overall is limit access to cell phones and the internet.
Isn't that interesting? So parents, you might really want to consider limiting that access. What I do hear from parents is that, my child won't let me. They don't have that kind of authority in their own home.
That's a problem.
Yeah, yes.
Because a family isn't meant to be a democracy. A family is meant to be a benevolent dictatorship. You're supposed to have authority over your kids.
So when you started to talk about Bark, and I know that was an important thing.
Yes.
what is it?
So Bark is an app that a parent can get, and it will tell you who is trying to contact them in a game, who's trying to contact them through an app. So the new thing is that AI tries to get the children into private chat rooms and begin the conversation. AI will actually sextort a child and get them to send pictures and then sextort them and then talk them and show them how to commit suicide. We already have three, there were 3 families that this happened to, and they lost their children, and they had the transcripts from AI, and they read the transcripts. We absolutely appealed to them emotionally, their dreams, their desires, and then took them step by step down that pit and showed them how to commit suicide. So the limitations are super important. Monitoring, parents monitoring is super important. Bark, if you use the code 4, the number 4, FFA, you can get a discount on Bark, and you can also get the Bark phone for if you just want to contact your children, but you want to limit their ability to send pictures, especially nude pictures. It will recognize if it's a nude picture and stop them from sending it or receiving it. And it will tell you everywhere they've been on the internet, what they're looking at, and you will get every text and every contact that they get. So that's super important. I mean, they're hands down, that's the minimum that you have to do. Let alone, I mean, my grandson was on some game, and he goes, "Mom, some guy just said hi." She grabbed the phone away from him because he was on her phone, and that's where it happens. The kids get the parents' phone, and so limiting and then monitoring and having these apps and being on top of it, that's huge. That's gigantic. So let me switch it up just a little bit here. So Michelle, Dr. Lippman, you've long been a proponent, you both have just been wonderful to the organizations in this. You sit on a number of boards, have sat on many boards. Tell us about how you're involved in the community and how that makes a difference too.
Well, Rob and I have always been very philanthropic. We, from the get-go, if we were successful, we wanted to give back to the community that made us successful. And children have always been a hotspot, I guess, for us. Rob sat on the board for helping people succeed. I sat on the board for Project Lift, which also deals with children who've kind of been down the wrong road and gotten involved in drugs, and a lot of them also have abuse and a lot of psychological problems, and those children are taught vocational skills to become contributing members of society. So that was a board that I sat on that they actually kicked me off of because I exceeded my term limits. We're also involved heavily with the Education Foundation, both here in Martin and St. Lucie County.
They have given us grants before. We love them.
Yeah, and Rob's also very involved with PALS, which is another.
What is PALS, Rob?
Well, PAL is the Police Athletic League. I've kind of stepped away from them because I joined the board of the YMCA.
Yes.
And I believe they're partnering with you as well to help educate.
Well, we did a day of defense at the YMCA that was a great success. We had a ton of families come out and everybody was shouting, "Don't take the pain." And so Dr. Lippman has a very special secret. Tell us what that is.
So I train in martial arts. I'm actually a 2nd degree black belt, and I was approached by Lynn to help with this day of defense. So me and my sensei put on a demonstration for the audience where I was the victim, the one that was being grabbed or attacked, and to show that there are techniques that you can do even without all that training to be able to escape.
So she had the audience roaring, especially when he grabbed her from the back and she elbowed him. He literally flew across the mat and slid on the floor. That was a great moment. I loved that. I was like, I want to watch that over and over and over again. Because women, you don't have to feel helpless. You really can defend yourself, right? Fighting back. Did you see the girl on, it was Fox News, I think, that some guy broke into the gym and assaulted her, or he got in, she may have let him in, but he assaulted her and she started beating the crap out of him, and he was twice her size. Wow. She pulled his beard, she poked his eyes, and she got away. And then they interviewed her. It was fantastic. So, tell us too about the importance of, and then we're going to talk about this whole transition home that we're thinking of trying to tackle here. the importance of medical help for a victim, because children, the average lifespan of a child in this commercial use of their bodies, and by the way, online exploitation is fueling child trafficking as the fastest growing part of the world. So we've got all these children being used commercially, and you can, and more than a drug sold 20, 30, 40 times a day, they die in 7 years on the average of either disease or violence. So what kind of medical treatment do they need, and how important is it that we address all of the issues?
Yeah, well, these children are obviously not kept in the best conditions. They're not fed nutritional diets, they're abused. So, a lot of them are dealing with a lot of, I'm sure Lou can talk about this a little bit better than I can in terms of like anorexia and eating disorders and
Disassociation.
yeah, and they're being given drugs to medicate them.
Yes.
So they have to be detoxed off of the medication.
Good point.
They're being raped, so they're being exposed to STDs. So that needs to be checked and treated. And they're inherently distrustful of people. So it's very difficult to try to develop that type of relationship where they'll even let you do that type of exam.
So I attended a workshop at the Just Conference, and it was the whole team under James Uthmeyer, and they had rescued 60 children. And the key to the success of that mission was giving them a soft landing place, a place where there were mentors from the community would come in from various NGOs and which is, organizations that have some background, and actually sit with the children, mentor them, give them teddy bears, comfort them, help them to feel safe, and then low lights, so the nurses would come in and meet them and talk with them, and then they would explain to them about the exams. And so it wasn't just glaring lights and terror for a child to be examined and to get medical help. And do you know that most of those children gave testimony, and that's how they arrested those traffickers, because of that soft landing place. So let's talk about our ideas here.
Yeah, that was the single best thing that came out of our meeting last week was, I think that's a great idea. Michelle and I have talked about that before. When she was in the ER, she would have to do rape kits, and the horrible part of that, but those are for when they have a perpetrator specifically. Here, you don't necessarily know who the perpetrators are, and there's multiple ones. Gaining their trust is super important.
Oh, yes.
And not having them in an ER, busy ER with lights and machines beeping, and I'll get to you when I can. If we can get them into a much quieter place, a safe place, and start developing their trust. That's where I think we're going to be successful. That's where I want to put most of my efforts.
And we are talking about a transitional home right here. Now, 10 years ago, that was my dream. That was my goal. It says it right there on the mural. It says it. That was what I was in there for. That's why I worked so hard on that mural. And, the organization at the time that we were working with just kind of took a different road, and then the pandemic came, and there was a lot of factors in there. But that call was still on me to have something. There's nothing here in the Treasure Coast. The only place to put a victim is either in jail or in a hotel room. And Dr. B, they're going to run back to their trafficker. We got to get their soul back.
So
because
I asked, do the local social service agencies have specialized group homes?
There are, I believe there's one in West Palm Beach. We don't know that those are ideal homes being run by DCF, which is basically a broken system. Most of those kids have been in fact, 60% of all foster care children have been trafficked. And that's the system they go back in. In other words, a child gets rescued here, they go back into foster care. They're just gonna get trafficked all over again. They run away 50, 60 times, in the process of being fostered. And it's like the judges don't know what to do with them because they just keep moving away.
and what you said, you know, a lot of them go into jail. Well, think about that problem is you go to jail, you're in with other criminals, or you may learn other crimes, and then when you're done with your time, you get put out on the street and you have nowhere to go.
Exactly. There's no transition, there's no, oh, and, you know, now that we have a council of survivors too, one of the things they said to us is that after we got rescued and we tried to go back and do regular life, we didn't even know how to make a decision. We didn't know what to wear, we didn't know when to sleep, we didn't know what to eat, we didn't know when to go to the bathroom. They were controlled at every level of their life for so long that they forgot how to make a choice, how to make a decision. They have to be taught how to do that, and that's part of our Power of Art program that we do, is empowering choices again. And that's when it's working, and I'm excited about it. Save La Freedom just brought it in, and they're excited about it, and they'll help us get this out into many other homes as well. Because they just, you know, they, even now, friends of mine that have been out of the life, and our speaker at Boots on the Ground, she said sometimes she still calls her friends and they go, well, what do you want to eat? Well, I don't know. What do you want? Well, I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. And they'll sit there and go back and forth for a long time. They still struggle to make decisions, you know, because it was so ingrained in them to be a slave.
Yeah, I was looking at my head around the fact that these victims are being put in jail and being, you know, so the whole mentality that I'm a criminal,
Yes.
you know, it's just so sad.
Yes. Do you think we can raise the money and make this transition home happen?
I'm sure as heck gonna give it every ounce that I have. I know a lot of your followers know people, so.
You guys
I'm
can help
asking you all
us.
to help, you know.
Yes.
Every little bit helps, and if you know somebody, you know, please ask.
We live in a great community, it's such a compassionate community. Anytime there's a tragedy, the community rises up.
Yes. There's a home, somebody's got a home that they could just give to us. And then we could start renovating it for what we need. And Dr. V, how important is the whole psychological, just almost like you have to deprogram them when they first come in.
Well, most of us in our modern moment are flooded with stimuli, right? So one of the things that we can do for these individuals is give them quiet, give them a place where they're not constantly bombarded with all kinds of stimuli.
Interesting.
And absolutely, again, I'll say it again, separate them from mass media, separate them from the internet, detox them. You know, have them learn how to have a conversation while looking at someone's face. Have them learn how to engage in quiet time, engaging in a non-harmful activity with somebody else. You know, how many kids go outside to play anymore? You know, how many kids do symbolic play with each other?
Yes.
You know, they just don't, because why do symbolic play with someone when you can do it online with a stranger?
Goodness. Yeah, you were in Hibiscus House in Jensen Beach, and the ages are 3 to 12. Those are the kids we work with. And they've been, most of them have been trafficked too. They just don't identify that way. You know, but most of it has been sexual abuse that falls under the guise of trafficking as well. These children are completely different than normal children, but we're watching some healing take place, and it's good. And they do have a beautiful playground, and they're teaching them how to, you know, interact and play with other children, which they've never done.
Development happens in stages, and you can't skip a stage. You really have to go through every stage and learn the tasks of that stage to be competent at the next stage.
Wow.
So if children have injured attachments, disruptive attachments, you've got to put them in an age-appropriate developmental setting so you can relearn the skills of that stage.
Wow. Would you help?
Well, that's what
Excuse me.
Can't see you.
Wait a
you
minute.
know, therapy is foster home with foster parents who are trained in skills of teaching attachment, and then they keep moving from one home to another. So, you know, the question of the day is, are you my mommy? And they keep asking if someone is their special person, and you have to give them a constant special person. You've got to give them object constancy.
Oh, that's good. Yes, very excellent, very good. So in the transition home that I've noticed, like Save La Freedom has a transition home, and then they have another home after that that they funnel them into where they have more responsibilities. You know, the first one's kind of the tax place, and the second one is beginning to take responsibility, help cook, you know, help operate as a team. And then the next one is the intense therapy and the you know, life coping skills, you know, learning all of that. And then the final one is getting a job, you know, getting a car, paying some bills, and finally going back. They have an 85% success rate.
The purpose of being a child is to practice to be an adult. So if you don't learn the skills as a child, you're gonna have a hard time being a competent adult.
Wow.
So if you don't learn how to have a healthy attachment as a child
Yes.
through all the stages,
Yes.
you're not gonna have an easy time making an attachment as an adult.
As an adult. Wow. There were so many survivors at this conference that still are in that position. They're like children in some of these areas. They've never just progressed beyond that. The little girl that I worked with at Singapore, she was 18 when I met her. She was physically as developed as a 12-year-old. And very tiny, never developed physically, still looked like a 12-year-old, and her behavior was about an 8-year-old.
Survival, right? Small and cute, you get less hurt and pain.
Wow.
You know, it's the concept of psychosocial dwarfism,
Wow.
where the world is so hurtful that there's no sense in getting bigger and older,
Wow.
so we stay small.
That's amazing. He's amazing. You know, so parents, if you know, have a need, and I would strongly urge you to reach out to Treasure Coast Urgent Care if you're in this area. Do you do any Zoom therapy, or do you do
I
just
prefer not, there's nothing like in person.
in person?
But for the occasional visit, I don't mind seeing someone online for the occasional visit,
Okay.
but not as a, you know, permanent
So
arrangement.
your branch is Treasure Coast tell me the right name.
Yep, yeah, so Treasure Coast Urgent Care is really for non-life-threatening injuries. What we're talking about today
Yes.
is Treasure Coast Psychiatry, and that's what Dr. Velasquez is associated with.
Right. Well, he would be definitely somebody that I would go to if I was struggling with any of that. I rarely have time to be depressed.
That's a
So
good
it
problem.
doesn't really happen to me. But if it did, I would go to you for sure. Well, is there anything else that you want to say about just what we're doing, what we're working on, where it's going? We're talking about the proclamations. And I think Martin County can become a template, and that was said in our meeting the other night, that we could do things that nobody else has done, primarily because we have leaders in our community who are all coming together. That's really cool.
I think Martin County can become the pilot program for the United States, potentially the world. We have great law enforcement.
Yes.
Sheriff Budenseek is all over this.
Yes.
You know, Chief Zanelevich with the Stewart PD.
Chief Z, he's
Yeah,
great.
so we have a great support system. You know, Dr. Velasquez and I have gone and spoken with a lot of the local therapists who are willing to come out and help. Dr. Libman has talked to a bunch of the, you know, local physicians that are willing to help. So we have our,
We
our
have
team.
the structure and the team. All we really need is money. I mean, that's the only thing we need. We want to move forward. We've done a lot of research on this, and I know the sheriff has indicated that, you know, this is a great need. When they have no place to put victims except jail, they feel terrible. They don't want to do that. And they know as soon as they land in a hotel that they'll be right back with the trafficker again. So I think that it's so crucial. And one other thing I wanted to say to you is that what we heard about at the conference more than anything else from survivors is the disassociation. And I wanted you to just maybe address that. Like, okay, so there's this judge in Arapahoe County, Colorado. And when he was a baby, his father started grooming him. His father was a surgeon. He was in a ring of other surgeons, and they all traded their little boys, groomed them in diapers, and then by the time he was 5, he was being trafficked among all the surgeons. And he said he used to leave his body and go up on the ceiling and go down and watch what was happening. And when his dad realized that he was doing that, he would get surgical needles and poke him in the heels and make him come back again, so he would experience the pain, because that was his. You should hear this guy's, and now he has the most successful court for juveniles in the state of Colorado, maybe in the country. for rehabilitating juveniles and helping them through. But this whole disassociation thing is what I think all of the survivors talked about, is how do you get back integrated again?
Well,
Yeah.
dissociation is a
There's no
defense,
quick answer, I know.
it's a defense mechanism, you know, and
Explain it.
we have inborn defense mechanisms to survive. I mean, everybody's exposed to some trauma in life, some more than others. And perhaps this is the most enlightened and safe time we've lived in history. And still, now we look around and see all those horrific things happening, but it's always been there. So as a species to survive, we have the capacity to dissociate. And that's in the same mental framework as someone who meditates or who prays and is able to block out everything else and focus on one thought, one spiritual moment, except in the case of abuse, it's darkness. And sometimes the ability not to be present for the abuse is better than to be present for the abuse. So
But they get stuck out there or something.
sometimes that's how you get, you know, people with different identities. Elizabeth Smart, a girl who was kidnapped in 2002,
Yes.
right? She was given a new name, which she answered to.
Mhm.
You know, and when the police found her, she answered not to her name and said her name was Augustine Maxwell, I think. And she was able to reintegrate back into her family, to her society, into her life, but her parents had the resources to help her with that. She was gone for 9 months.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
an upper middle class family in Utah, it could happen to anyone, anywhere,
Yes.
being taken. It's a tragedy that we have to think like that, I don't want to be paranoid,
No,
but people have to learn how to lock their doors and to make sure they know who their children are with and
To
who they
be
get in their
aware.
house. Because that captor was a roofer who happened to be working on their house and saw his target and came in at night, took her by knife point.
I remember that story now that you're bringing it all back. Yes, yes, and it happens all too often.
And he was a perpetrator for many years, and so was his wife. They were arrested and incarcerated multiple times throughout their life. So why were they still in the community?
That's,
See, that's another opportunity to help our society. When people are compulsive perps, you know, once you're a perp and you can't break out of it, well, it's a tragedy for you, but society doesn't have to expose itself to your compulsion. Right,
No.
and then what do? Can we do civil commitment perhaps? People that have done their jail time but still can't help themselves need to be told that, stay away from schools, and maybe they need to have an ankle bracelet.
castration could work too.
They've tried it in many countries, and it works to some degree, yeah,
But it's more up here.
but in our, you know, but in our country, you know, we have laws, you know,
Yeah.
cruel and unusual punishment, not something we do, you know, so that's gonna be hard to legislate.
Well, I think.
It's
another
voluntary,
thing
right?
I'm trying to get the church, I'm trying to get the synagogues, I'm trying to get, you know, the faith community to get boots on the ground. And you know, Jesus was not easy on these perpetrators. It would be better for you to have a millstone tied around your neck and thrown into the depths of the sea than you would cause one of these little ones to stumble. Who would have thought he was talking about this day and age? But he was. You know, and so a lot of times we think, oh, you know, maybe it's a form of disassociation that parents and maybe even churches just kind of look the other way and don't, you know, that's another life out, you know, but we have got to get engaged in the wake. And I think engaging the faith community is a huge part of that.
But I think you're doing an amazing job doing that.
We're working on it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, I know you guys have to go, so is there anything else that you want to say? And be sure to look up Treasure Coast Psychiatry. Yes.
Just,
And meet this
Again.
wonderful guy.
again, to ask your audience, please talk to people.
Yes.
Let's develop the financing to be able to get this soft landing spot.
Yeah.
You know, our law enforcement's doing a great job of finding these perps and getting the victims somewhere, but if we don't have a place to put them,
Yeah.
we've only done half the job.
That's right. So if we do it here, then we can do it in other communities, maybe your community, if you're not from Martin County and you're watching. But let's get something done here, right?
Yeah, and to make your lifelong dream come true, I mean, that would just be amazing.
All of us.
Yeah.
We all have that dream, right?
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Okay.
We have people from other countries even asking how they could be involved and stuff like that.
You know what? You need to follow us and find out how we're doing it. We have a tactical plan here. we have a plan, and we want to be able to share that plan. And as it unfolds and we get it done, we want this to be very public. We're not gonna say where the home is, because, you know, traffickers track victims. But we're gonna share what works, and we wanna share it with everybody, because you gotta do this in your community. So,
So then, where's the best place for the audience to contact you to be able
So
to make that?
go to, sometimes people do false websites, and so we do FloridaFaithAlliance.org. Some people get mixed up and go to the wrong website. So just Google us, Florida Faith Alliance. You're gonna find us. Also, u-act.org. That's our school section, what we're doing for awareness in schools. And we have two big spokes, awareness and restoration. We're talking about restoration tonight, but awareness is key, education. This tactical plan is working here, and we're seeing arrest after arrest after arrest, rescue after rescue. And so we can do this in other places, so just contact us, we'll help with that.
So I just got one more question. So on TikTok, they're able to subscribe. So,
Yes.
and they have subscribe only videos. So maybe,
Oh.
are you willing to do something like that for
Well, here's
subscribers?
what we're doing. We are doing webinars that will be subscription for very small amount of money for parents, for concerned citizens. It's going to be regular webinars. We're going to have law enforcement. We're going to have survivors. We're going to keep you up to date with the changing landscape of what's going on with trafficking, the approaches of predators and traffickers online, all of the things that they're using, the newest apps, the latest trends. We're going to do all of that for you. We're going to do webinars minimum once a month. And probably more, and Mom and Caroline can just get on and find out what's going on. And we're gonna equip you, yes. Yeah, so stay tuned, follow us, make sure you know, because we just got a grant to do that, so we're starting right away. Okay,
Great.
awesome.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
See you guys next Friday night or sooner.